So Bitcoin is pumping as the US and China are now holding trade talks in London. In today's video, we'll be going over exactly this, going over the most recent Bitcoin news, and we'll also touch on the Bitcoin charts to show you if the head and shoulders pattern that we've been covering on the channel has been invalidated. If you enjoy the content, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe. Without further ado, let's jump right into the video. So as we can see here, the US and China to hold trade talks in London, and those trade talks are now active. Now, I also wanted to go over some news before we go into the Bitcoin chart. We can see that Bitcoin has been pumping. MicroStrategy did buy another 1,045 Bitcoins worth approximately $110 million. So they keep on adding to their positions. And at the time of recording this video, Saylor's average Bitcoin purchase price is now above the 2021 all-time high, sitting right around $70,000, and he just bought recently at around 105K. So you can see that he just continues to accumulate regardless of the price, and we'll see how this plays out in the bear market, because if we go ahead and dump below those levels, I do think that there will be a lot of panic within strategy and for Michael Saylor himself. Let's see. But anyways, let's take a look at the Bitcoin chart, because this is definitely something that all of you will be wondering about. Now, we previously discussed the head and shoulders pattern on the 4-hour time frame, and you can see that it still hasn't quite been invalidated, although it is looking more and more likely by the minute. As we can see here, this right shoulder is starting to extend quite high up here, and if we start to get consecutive daily closes above this level over here, I would be willing to say that this trade has officially been invalidated. You have to remember, a lot of the content that I discuss on the channel is based on trading probabilities. And so to me, if this would have rolled over, it would have been an excellent short for Bitcoin. Remember, I've been holding my spot portfolio since below 20K, and this is what allows me to operate in this market relatively stress-free. On the channel, I do go over some trading patterns to see what the probabilities are and if we can go ahead and play these probabilities to make some nice gains. For now though, as I said, consecutive closes like this and this pattern would be invalidated. So what would be the next levels for Bitcoin? Because right now on this chart, we're also breaking above the 106.2K daily level, which is a crucial level for Bitcoin. I'll remind you, we never had daily closes above that level, and then when we finally did it, we went ahead and put in a new all-time high. And right now, since wicking down to the fair value gap on the weekly time frame, which I did mention was a key support level, we got a very, very nice bounce, and we are above that important daily level. So if we are to continue closing like this, at that point, the only next resistance is around 109.5K, which coincides exactly with the previous all-time high. If I go on the hourly chart here, just to show you what I'm talking about, this is definitely an area of interest. Whenever we tapped on this level on the hourly time frame, we got some pretty crazy rejections. As you can see here, we pumped right to this level before putting in an all-time high, and then we got aggressively rejected back down to this daily support level. Then we pumped back above it and we set that new all-time high. And then as soon as we started flirting with this level once more, I was very confident that Bitcoin would go ahead and move lower, as we discussed on the channel, because we failed to hold 109.5K as support. So this is the next area of interest in my opinion, if Bitcoin can continue to close comfortably where it's at. This would be very, very important. If we just break through here, then at that point, we would potentially be seeing a new all-time high for Bitcoin. Now, some of you might be thinking, okay, new all-time high, but you talked about a summer range. And I just wanted to address some comments, because it is very frustrating to me when people accuse me of misleading them, all because I said that we will have a summer range. Guys, there's a ton of liquidity to the upside, which we will cover next up, but we can see here that it is very likely that Bitcoin will be forming a range over the course of the summer. We've seen it time and time again, and there's no reason to expect anything different. I know we'll have the global M2 money supply people commenting down below, and I'll make sure to debunk that in one of my future videos. But for now, I do think that it is highly likely that we continue to grab liquidity to the upside and then chop around within this range. That could potentially mean going all the way up to an all-time high. Now, I know this is a pretty big range, but what I am getting at is that I don't think we will get the aggressive move to 125K beyond. I do think that right now this is highly likely for Bitcoin to chop around over the course of the summer, consolidate, because we do see some strength into mid-June, and then we go ahead during the summer and dump a little bit lower. I will also stand by what I said in my previous video, which is it is highly likely that we will still be seeing a sub 100K Bitcoin. I don't want you to get fooled by all of these other crypto influencers that are telling you that there's no way we're going to have a sub 100K Bitcoin ever again. don't fall for that trap because Bitcoin can easily consolidate, as we've been covering on the channel. So if you're in my Telegram group, you know that I've talked about this Bitcoin exchange liquidation map at length today and across my other YouTube videos. The reason why I want to point this out again is because we are starting to see more and more longs enter the market. You'll remember on the channel, when there were way more shorts here, I told you that we would likely be moving much higher to liquidate some of those shorts. Now we could be entering a potential turning point, and that would be grabbing some liquidity to the upside, continuing here because we can see all the way up to around 109.5K, which is the previous all-time high. There is a ton of liquidity. In fact, if we were to go all the way up to this level, we would liquidate $3 billion worth of shorts. That is cumulative short liquidation leverage. On the other side though, we are now starting to see that more and more people are aggressively entering longs because they don't want to miss out in case Bitcoin goes ahead and breaks all-time highs. So if we start to see that this red line gets higher and higher and higher, and the shorts liquidation leverage gets lower and lower and lower, at that point I would be calling for another correction for Bitcoin. But right now, this is relatively even, which means it is still healthy for the price action to potentially continue up. Now back to the head and shoulders pattern, because I know that you guys probably want me to address this a little bit further. As I said, if we start to get these consecutive closes above this level that we're currently at that point, the head and shoulders pattern would be invalidated. Now, I'm not sure why I get so much slack in the comment section sometimes because I point out these patterns. People get very emotional whether you're bearish or bullish. I just look at the charts and talk about the probabilities, and looking at this, it was a highly likely scenario, but we can see right now that it isn't looking like it's going to play out. Now, over the coming days, I will make sure to keep you updated on this chart and how it develops, but just so you know, if we start to get these closes, as I've been saying, this pattern would be invalidated. Now, let's take a look at the shorter time frame liquidation leverage for Bitcoin, because we can see that a lot of longs are starting to pile in the market, as this chart suggested as well. So if we go back here and I refresh this, just to give you a better perspective, if Bitcoin goes up to just 108.8K, there will be a ton of liquidations, around $100 million. However, if we go on the 3-day time frame, it does paint a little bit of a different picture because we're starting to see more and more longs enter the market, as we just discussed. Now, taking a look at ETH against Bitcoin, you can see that yes, we did get rejected at the bull market support band, which is not positive for Ethereum nor for the altcoin market. However, it's not a massive rejection quite yet. Usually we can get these nasty wicks and then aggressively bleed lower, but this time around it does look like we're still trying to trickle around and see if we can potentially retest it once more. As I mentioned, if we break above this level and we can hold it as support, 1, super positive for Ethereum of course, and 2, even more positive for the altcoin market. Now, the other chart that I wanted to talk about is Bitcoin dominance. I saw some comments in my previous video saying that Bitcoin dominance doesn't even look that bullish. It looks like it's ready to roll over. This is the weekly chart. How can you tell me that it doesn't look that bullish? Look at these green candles. Every single time we had a dump, I was here on the channel to tell you that Bitcoin dominance was going to move higher, and no one believed me. We got, for example, this wick over here sending us into a massive dump, and I told you that we would likely hold this level as support before moving higher. Then we got this massive wick, and every influencer was saying altcoin season is imminent. However, we trickled on up and went higher. And then with this red candle over here, same story. As I mentioned in my community several times, the only reason why altcoins are starting to trickle on up is because Bitcoin is trickling on up. And so Bitcoin drags the rest of the altcoin market. However, if Bitcoin were to say correct, let's just assume that, for example, we start to get some nasty wicks around here and the right shoulder forms and we do dump further for Bitcoin. Or if you think that the head and shoulders pattern is completely invalidated already, we chop around during the summer. Do you really think that this is going to be an environment for altcoins? I'm not that convinced. And once again, if Bitcoin decides to move lower, altcoins will get annihilated. However, if Bitcoin does move higher, they will likely trickle on up to try and follow Bitcoin. That's the nature of the market, and until Bitcoin dominance starts reversing here, it will be the same. Don't expect anything different. Okay, so that covers the charts. Now there is something interesting that I want to share you, and that is the fact that we can see that there's literally a 97.6% chance that there will not be rate cuts at the next Fed meeting in June. And this is also backed up by Kalshi, which is another betting market. So both Polymarket and Kalshi are essentially saying the exact same thing. With the job market remaining relatively resilient, this is of course expected. And as I wrap up this video, if you haven't already, make sure to join my free Telegram community, which is the first link in my description down below. In that community, I am posting regular updates on what exactly is happening with the market, and it allows me to update you at a much faster tempo. Also, if you'd like to learn more, I did just launch a signals group, and so if you message me the word signals on Telegram, I will make sure to onboard you. And that sums up today's quick video. The haters will be right because it looks like this head and shoulders pattern may be invalidated. I am personally still waiting for some consecutive closes at the current levels to fully give up on that head and shoulders pattern. However, right now it does look very promising for more upside for Bitcoin. If you enjoyed the content, make sure to smash that like button and subscribe, and I'll see you in tomorrow's video.